WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We're positively into the summer months, which gives me a chance to oxygenate, breathe a little bit here. We got about a month before Ravens training camp appears. We believe Lamar Jackson's going to appear. And I'm eating a lot of crab cakes out in the Maryland Crab Cake Tour just to get my friends from out of town hungry for the good stuff. Now, he might have some stone crabs down there in Miami. He is Baltimore's own homegrown and one-time West Coaster. He's not that David Katz. He's this David Katz. He is Katz Mandu, former executive and chief of all things Yahoo and Fox as well, Fox Sports. He's now down in Miami doing his thing. He is the post-game. He is Oriole fan one, Raven fan one, but more than that, you're a Baltimore fan, Katz. And when Miami wins something and Baltimore loses something, and it's Father's Day, and I see you out there doing all this nice stuff for your pop, and I'm doing stuff for my pop because that's where we all get it from. I said, you know what? I need some Katz Mandu in my life and get some feedback from down in Florida. And I see you in that beautiful light. It looks like the ocean is reflecting upon your eyes.
Nestor, you always have the best intros. Thanks for having me on. You know, this has been it's been a weird week. It's been a challenging week. I am down here in Miami, and I'm sitting there listening to the World Cup announcement, dying for Baltimore's name to be called, Baltimore, Washington. I called my friends at Fox who were doing the show, and I asked them a little sneak peek. Is there anything you could tell me? Is Baltimore's name going to be mentioned? They went radio silent on me. And to not hear Baltimore's name, and even though I'm living in Miami now and used to live in Los Angeles and those cities get it, I feel nothing for that. And I was heartbroken for the city because I know, and I got to give you a lot of credit. You really put this on the map for me. You put that, June 16th date. You have to tune in and pay attention to it. You were all over this story from the beginning. And man, I thought that we were headed and trended in the right direction. We were going to get this. I was at the Ravens game where they turned the lights off at night and did that pyrotechnic show and had the bands come out. And it was an incredible energy in that stadium. And I knew it was because the FIFA folks were in the stadium and they wanted to have that feeling. And what a great night Baltimore delivered. And I was hoping that we'd be able to pull it off. And it feels like we were the, as they say in the NCAA tournament parlance, first team out. You would know better than I, but it feels like we just missed it. And I was heartbroken for the city because I felt like this is the kind of thing the city needs. It would have been oxygen for the city for the next 4 years and something to look forward to and something to rally around and a source of pride. So it's been a weird weekend for me processing all that. And I'm really bummed for the city.
Yeah, there's no getting up from this one. We lost the Colts and we recovered, right? Like it took us 13 years. We got a football team. I'm releasing Purple Rain 1 out there and seeing all these old pictures of me with Rob Burnett and me with Phil Savage and me and Brandon Stokely eating oysters when we're in our 20s. And all these years later to have had another one. I'm going to release Purple Rain 2 next month, that we're chasing this thing with Lamar. Obviously, the Orioles are the Orioles at this point. And we've had things taken away from us. I mean, the thing that we talk about, the Angelos boys fighting and the franchise and the future of the team, having that championship night taken away from the city by the baseball owner was just civic piracy. Taking away great things. I mean, I had the mayor on Monday, talked about AFRAM. They had 100,000 people out at Druid Hill Park. No murders, nothing, crazy, keeping the peace. But we're trying to build the city back. We're talking about what Harbor Place is going to be. I have all of these people renovating the Royal Farms Arena in my ear about concerts and events and the CIAA and what's going to happen next year. And then we talk about $1.2 billion of money put into the stadia. And one of the things was that, and I told the mayor this, everybody pisses on the mayor and the city and crime and police. Nobody had any problem finding McCartney 2 weeks ago. Not at all. You build it, they will come. You build great restaurants, you build safety and civic concern and public safety, transportation, these basic things that you see everywhere you travel in the world, that FIFA sees everywhere they travel in the world. But the transportation thing, blaming that on Baltimore or the crime, it had nothing to do with any of that. It had to do with the organization of Baltimore and Washington and being one bid David, you work at the top of the top levels at Fox. If you're negotiating a multi-billion-dollar deal from Fox Sports or from any of the brands that you've worked for, and there's uncertainty on the other side that the other side isn't figuring it out, and you have another option, you go with the other. You go with stability. You go with we know who we're dealing with. And case in point would be the Angelos family who came in baseball by the side door. Case in point would be Daniel Snyder, who has embarrassed DC to the point where, we're embarrassed in Baltimore. DC lost the World Cup, dude. The capital of the free world didn't have its ish together to get the World Cup, and they needed Baltimore, and Baltimore couldn't figure out how to play little brother and get this done.
Yeah. That's well said. Nestor, going back on other World Cups, do you know how many capital cities did not end up hosting a game? I
It's
don't know
like
the
2
answer
in
to that.
100 years, and it had to do with war and famine and stuff. Yes, it's terrible.
It's insane. Like that should have been a foregone conclusion.
Well, that's why that there was an arrogance here. That's why I took the banner over to Europe last week. That's why I thought it's a capital free world. How are they going to say no? And the stadium's fine here, and the city's great here, and the transportation. The only transportation they cared about was the train tracks from DC to the front door of the stadium, and we got that going for us. There is no transportation problem. They weren't looking to bring people in from Woodlawn or from Dundalk to the World or Harford County to the World Cup. There's a parking lot for that. So I mean, any transportation thing that they're blaming on Larry on the red line, that's Democratic BS that I will blow the whistle on, and I vote that way. So, this really is about money, obviously, but also about organization, right? Like organization when they come down to Miami, they've had Super Bowls, they have Orange Bowls, they have big events. They're ready for this. There was some question as to whether a disjointed leadership group in Baltimore, Washington would be functional for FIFA.
Well, proof was in the pudding there. They couldn't go with it. And you see other cities, like Atlanta and Houston and others, and I know that they are large DMAs, but the combined Washington-Baltimore DMA is substantial. And it made so much sense on that East Coast corridor where you can, the one place that the transportation in this country, which all the Europeans and these other countries are used to, is taking trains, not having to get on airplanes to get where you want to go. So you've got some certain, like Kansas City, it was an amazing, with Sporting KC, they've done an amazing job. They support soccer. I get it. But you still got to fly there to get there. And you got to be there, and you're pretty isolated there. And people say, oh, but we put Dallas and Houston together because those cities are close to each other. They're not that close to each other. And by the way, you got to get in a car, get in a plane to get there. The East Coast corridor is one of the more special places in the United States. And being able to go between DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, and then even Boston, that I-95, can you imagine what that train experience would have been like going up and down during the World Cup? It would have been awesome. And they certainly could have added a leg to that. But you're right. It's about organization. It's about confidence. The people in those jobs want to make sure they're not embarrassed. No one wants to look back and say, how could you have possibly chosen this? And they had some concerns. They had some concerns about the organization and about the cohesion between Baltimore and DC, it sounds like. And that's just a shame because Baltimore is going to feel the brunt of that. DC will move on. DC's got, they are a capital city and they've got other issues to deal with in Daniel Snyder and others. So for Baltimore, this would have been a shot in the arm, and it's a real shame. And like we were saying before, I don't know what you can get to replace what that would have been.
There is no Super Bowl coming or Final Four coming. There's no, we'll do the World Cup the next time, or we're getting the Olympics or any of those guys. David Katz is here. He's been my friend for a long, long time. He runs things, most recently Fox Sports, now down in Miami, but always a Baltimorean. Where you, when I talk football with you, you get fanboy on me. It's not quite where Moeller is with the Orioles, not at all. I don't even want to put you in that category, but you do put the purple beak on. You do see things in some purple Kool-Aid from time to time. Where are you on the Lamar thing watching this unfold? Because you have also negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts with special people and agents and non-agents and agents' mamas and whoever else. And it's always When you're talking about $100 a week for somebody and what they earn
Yeah.
to feed their family, it's sensitive. When it's $45 million a year, it's sensitive. But the football team here is in a weird position of he's making 23 million. There's not a lot of great communication, or as you would say, professional or presentation of an agent for Eric to negotiate with while Lamar goes and throws footballs. This is a very, very touchy situation and unique. And I don't know where the crystal ball is, because I'm not convinced Lamar wants to be here. I'm not convinced of that.
I can't speak to those things, but I think about the end result, at least what we expect the end result to be thus far. By Lamar waiting and not doing what everyone else, all the pundits are saying, take the deal, you're a running quarterback, the chance of injury is very high. As he's waited and played this out, the guaranteed money for him has only shot through the roof.
It's at least doubled.
It's at least doubled. Okay. So let's just
That's if he takes a bad deal, like a core.
Correct.
175 million would be a bad deal now for him, right?
Now he's waited, he's been patient. You can call it betting on yourself, or you could just call it knowing where the salary cap is going. And by the way, let's be clear, he has advisors. He doesn't have an agent standing in front taking 3%, talking to the Ravens. Everything I've read, he's got lawyers and he's got a team of people behind him who are advising him. But what's really interesting, and what I think is very shrewd of Lamar, is he's done two things. By being patient and letting the market come, you saw it's been reported what Fox and NBC and Amazon Prime and all these guys are paying. The revenue of the league has basically doubled. So what does that mean when you follow the formula? That means the salary cap is effectively going to double.
So what you're saying is Roger Goodell's been working for him the whole time.
Roger Goodell is working for 32 people, and say what you want about Roger Goodell and you can boo him all you want. Roger Goodell has delivered in his job for the owners, and he is paid handsomely for it. But like any Fortune 100 CEO, which is effectively what he is, he has delivered for his shareholders. So look, Lamar, by being patient, has really increased two things: the total check that could come his way and the guaranteed nature of that check. Thank you, Deshaun Watson, and a few other horrific deals along the way. But the market has moved in his favor, and it was going to move in his favor when you look at all the revenue streams that were coming in. And we haven't really even fully monetized sports betting, which we can talk about later, because that's a whole other tranche going there. They still haven't done the deal for NFL Sunday Ticket. Wait for that one to come out. Most likely that's going to end up in one of the FANGs. It's going to end up with one of those Apple, Google, Amazon type companies coming in a very substantial way. So the world is trending in an NFL direction, and certainly the players are going to benefit from that, and Lamar in particular. And on top of that, you've negotiated with employees. I've had hundreds of employees that you have to sit down very often because employees don't have agents. Occasionally at a certain level, they have lawyers and you get to talk to them. And you think about the conversations you have with an employee's lawyer versus the conversation you have with an employee directly. It's a weird thing. Eric,
it's unbelievably different.
Weird position, because
it's like the conversation you have with your wife and your mother-in-law. It's a completely different conversation. You know what I mean?
Correct. How do you tell them, we love you, you're amazing, you're doing great things for us, we want you here, but you're not as good as these guys, or if you look at the stats, or you haven't really won in the playoffs enough, and all the things that you would position yourself as, you're great, but you really can't have that conversation, especially when you're 2 years away from the guy being able to walk out the door and you don't really have a replacement. So at the end of the day, I'm on a bunch of group texts with people, and a lot of people will say, he hasn't done it in the playoffs. Joe Flacco was clutch. Joe Flacco did it in the playoffs. He's no Joe Flacco. And you got to give Joe credit. But Joe, it felt like sleptwalk through 3.5 quarters and then would wake up. And if he had enough time or he got that extra possession, he would deliver very often. Lamar, let's not forget, we were winning games by 20 points a game back when we had a healthy offensive line and the team was performing. And yes, you have to evolve. And Lamar, I think he is the most entertaining player in football. And let's not forget, the goal of it it's so hard to win that final game of the season. It's so hard to get there and it's so hard to win. We're in an entertainment business. And how much of a pleasure is it to tune in to Ravens football every Thursday, Sunday, or Monday and watch this team play? And when you're winning 70% of your games or whatever the number is under Lamar, it's a heck of a lot of fun. And sure, we want to win those big games at the end. And I think a lot of that is on coaching and scheme and having the right and having a healthy, balanced team in front of you. But you can't put that all on Lamar. I think Lamar is a talent. I hope he's here. I think there is enough money in the new salary cap going forward, if you structure it the right way, to pay him his $40 million plus.
Well, I mean, it may be 21% of the cap in the beginning, but it could scale down to 16 or 17, but it's always going to be chunky, right? And to your point, if he ever sat down with Flacco very early on, Flacco would have said, always wait, always wait. I waited, wait some more, wait even some more, and you'll get more money. And even Hurt being not on the team last year showed the value of what he is on the field, healthy, and then the market moved, right? So like everything Flacco would have told him 10 years ago, everything I wrote about in Purple Rain 2 would still hold here for him. He's going to get even more money. So is Joe Burrow. So is everybody who's next in line, right?
There's a big question if Cincinnati, even though Joe Burrow has done things to that franchise that no one except Boomer ever did, and he did it once. Everyone I talk to says, wait for Cincy to screw that one up.
Okay, so this is a segue, Mr. Sports Guy, David Katz, to screwing things up. You've been following Angelos v. Angelos. I know you got a little legal background. You were pre-law, pre-med, or something like that, right?
Pre-law.
Right. So yeah, a little Animal House reference there for you. So I know you got all 44 pages in, dude. I mean, I have chronicled how effed up this has been from the beginning, almost so much so that I've taken the arrows for being too honest about just how incompetent and sordid. Most of the stuff in that document I knew. Most of the stuff in that document I could have reported at any point, or it's no secret that John's in, John's out, dad, all that stuff. But to put it in a document out for the world at the end of your mother's life, fighting over $1 billion, where everybody has at Peter's worst nightmare, which is disclosure, right? I mean, this is unbelievable from a civic standpoint, and it's really, really tragic given what the last 3 decades of really, really awful management and brand management and civic management for everything about the family, that this is how it's going to go down. And clearly this is how it's going to go down, right?
I mean, I'm chuckling inside because of course this is how it goes down. Like, if I follow what you've been saying for the last 20 plus years, this is how this thing has to end at some point. I don't know all the details and everything, but I can tell you, I went to a business lunch in Miami last week, and the guy said to me, "Oh, that team's headed to Nashville. That team's going to Nashville." Like, these are the things people are saying outside of this. And these are connected people in the sports industry. And I've heard from others that they tried to move them to Nashville. They tried to sell to a Nashville owner, and Major League Baseball blocked it. I don't know what's true and what's not true. But
what's true is, I know what's true. They're not here and they're not running it the right way. That's true. That there's nobody out in front of it. So they can take anything they want, but if your heart's in it, you'd be here. And that goes for Bisciotti out on a boat in the Bahamas too, and getting Sashi Brown to come in and run the thing. I mean, there are not a lot of Baltimore people left in the Baltimore Ravens running the Ravens, and I smell it. And certainly with the baseball team, one of the issues is just, what do they say? Your presence is the present, right? Like,
yeah.
be present. You own $1 billion, really important thing. Someone, it doesn't have to be named Angelos. Someone needs to be present and running it, not the catcher hitting 210.
I do want to say, because you brought up Bisciotti, I think Baltimore is blessed to have Steve Bisciotti as the owner of this franchise for the last 2 decades. Not just with the success we've had and the stability we've had, but the guy seems like he's not, doesn't put his nose in areas he doesn't need to be. He's not trying to be the story. He lets the football people run the operation and the business people run that, and he steps in when needed. and he's there for the important decisions from everything I hear. And I can tell you from the people I've spoken to at the league, they have enormous respect for Steve and how he's running things. He's not a meddling owner, but he provides the support the team needs, and the success has been there and the stability has been there. So
Well,
you're
by and large, Dick's run the franchise for a decade. By and large, I mean, and Steve would tell you, he defers to Dick on franchise issues, that Dick understood it all more. The fact that Dick is leaving, Steve's more engaged than he's ever been. He was standing 10 feet behind Lamar last Thursday, right? With a ball cap on. He's out on the field. He's very engaged after not being very engaged after Ray Rice punched his wife in an elevator and nobody speakied. You know what I mean? So there was a point where he was a little disengaged. That's
Sure.
no longer the case, and that's good. That's a good
That's
thing
right.
that Bisciotti.
Yeah.
That's my point. My point is be out in front of it. Be
Yeah.
out in front of it, because there are empty seats in the upper deck, and there are still things, businesses to court, and fans to make, and gambling addicts to make, and whatever else there is to do, right? There
100%.
is all of that for the business that baseball seems to. It just feels like an abandonment to some degree from a
Baseball,
business standpoint here.
yeah, baseball is also a different sport. It's like the NFL has become our national pastime, and the sport, everything is working for the sport. There is massive momentum behind it. We are a football country, obsessive, and they've turned that from a 6-month-a-year phenomenon to a 12-month-a-year phenomenon. You have to give them credit. I am
And by the way, I
obsessed.
walked the streets of Europe and Amsterdam and Cologne last week. I saw NFL stuff everywhere.
They are doing a phenomenal job. Now, baseball, on the other hand, is a sport that really needs a rethink on so many different levels. And what the sport is not really set up for the current younger generation that wants to just kind of flip through highlights and not really watch games and pace of play and all the things that have been discussed. So they've got challenges, and I understand the challenges that Manfred is facing, because that's an experience steeped in history and tradition and statistics, and everything is benchmarked against the generations before. And football has basically decided, no, we're going to change the rule. You no longer can touch a guy after a yard or whatever at the line of scrimmage, and you can't touch the quarterback, and all these other rules. They will make fundamental changes that completely change the statistical profile of these quarterbacks. And America doesn't seem to care. They love the offense. They love the scoring. They love where this stuff is going. And even when they do compare it historically, it doesn't affect the game. They made that decision a long time ago. We're about the present, and we're going to put the past in whatever context you want. You can debate.
Come on, they adopted the DH in the National League here this year. I mean, that's, took 50 years.
Good. Yeah, well, progress. So here we are. I think with baseball, because of that, and you see what minor league baseball does, right? When someone owns a minor league team, the community effort is so essential to the success of a minor league franchise. And I think Major League Baseball has taken the community aspect for granted for a long time. And you can no longer do that. You're no longer the build it, they will come experience. We have an amazing stadium. You got to have a great product on the field, yes, but you also need to be fan friendly. You need to understand your fan base. And I just don't see that happening. And baseball's done a lot of other things with, the digital side of it. They were very progressive early on, extremely progressive with MLB.TV, but then they centralized so much of it that they almost took away the local flavor of this. And I got to give the Ravens credit. I think the Ravens have done an excellent job on digital and social and video. They have really stepped up their game. And the team over there, I commend them.
I told Michelle Andres when I saw her a couple of weeks ago. I saw her at one of the press guys, the retirement press conference for Sam Cooke. I saw her, and they did an unbelievable job for Sam that day. And yeah, they do world-class work. They do Hollywood work over there in Owings Mills. They do.
And I got to tell you, my two sources of information on the Ravens are you and the team site and experience. And I would never think, I ran Yahoo Sports and Fox Sports and CBS Sports digital side. And I look at this and I'm like, I would never have thought you could go to a team site for any quality news and information. And what they do is terrific. They really are doing it at a high, high level. But on the other side, the centralization around baseball, and I mention this only to the extent, like, you got to keep fans engaged. And where am I going for information? And what is my touch point to the team? And I really don't have a good touch point with the Orioles anymore. And as a displaced fan, kind of these, expatriated fans who is not sitting in Baltimore every day, getting my Masson, I need these things to
Well,
stay.
the issue would be, even if they start winning, you might want to come back. And when you come back, what's the broadcast look like? What the highlights look like? What's the experience feel like? Going to the ballpark, what does that feel like? If you go and take your dad on a hot day, like, all of these issues, none of it smells good. And the other part of it is the game, with the shift and all the things that have gone on with the game's different. Now, I would say this: they're trending better. I mean, when the statistic is they've got the 30 wins after 68 games instead of 109, I don't know what to say other than you guys really, really sucked, and now it just sort of sucks. But there is a movement that they're going to get better, right? And when they get better, they need Aparicio and Katz and all your bunkies and all my bunkies to sit up and think it's good again and worth our time again. And clearly, we've been doing this most of our lives. It wouldn't take much to get me back to the ballpark if Ripken were down there, people were nice to me, the food was good, the experience were good, I was treated like a human being and not like garbage the way I've been treated for 2 decades. I don't need any special treatment. I need human treatment. And it's hard for these teams to do that lately, all the way around. I'm a guy that got thrown out of the press box at Preakness Day for, like, wearing the wrong suit, I guess, with a legitimate press pass. I mean, just weird stuff. The media side of me is one thing, but the fan side of me is, oh, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to come down. What am I going to pay? What's my experience going to be like? Is it going to be fun? Is it something I'm going to want to do regularly, 13 times a year? All of these questions that they've always sold it on, you're just going to care because it says it's got the bird on it. Hell, I saw that hat that they didn't give away the other day. The visor looks like Miami. It looked like a Doral Country Club, a visor, but it had the Oriole bird on it with the white panel, orange, black. It was dynamite looking. And they're like, they had a chain supply issue, couldn't give them out, and they gave vouchers. But I'm like, it's not hard to wind my heart back into the Orioles, right? That if they were to fix it, really fix it, that I could go on the air and say, these are good people. They're out in front. Hey, Mr. Big, come on the show. Let's talk about things. Tell me what you're doing in the community. Tell me about fireworks night. Tell me about the bobblehead night. Like, all of those things that I tried so hard 20 years ago to do.
Right.
I'm waiting for that. And I'm like a baby bird with my beak open. I don't see any leadership. And until I see it and smell it for myself, I'll know when it's real. I mean, really. I mean, the community will know when it's real.
Well, I want to go back to one thing you were talking about and your experience as a sports journalist, because you and I have been in many press boxes together. Sports journalism has completely changed, and the whole vibe, the don't cheer in the press box adage that we grew up with, that you would go in there, and that is not sports anymore. And I think that the communications teams of these are still expecting a world where everyone there is quiet in the press box and great things happen or bad things happen. There's no expression. It's all very, very solemn and everything. And that's not the world we live in today. The best journalists are like you, and I think a lot like me, in that we are fans first. We are passionate. We've chosen this career because this is what we want to think about, talk about, write about, speak about all day long. And that comes with what every fan, if you walk into any sports bar in America and you talk to fans, the most passionate, the fans you should care about the most, usually are the loudest. They're the loudest positively, and then they're the loudest negatively when things aren't going well or where they think things need to change. And the job of these teams, I think, is to harness that passion. And today, the fandom, they need you in that press box. They need you in the locker room. They need you expressing it. And by the way, not everything that comes out of your mouth has to be positive. And the team, even though your name is Baltimore Positive, it doesn't have to be positive, because some things warrant criticism and critique. And I think that they need to respect that. That's the one thing that I feel is, look, it makes people's jobs hard when there's negative press if people are sensitive. but you shouldn't be in this job owning a team or being a general manager of a team or being a coach of a team if you can't take that level of criticism and critique. But just harness it, because the people who are maybe your most vocal critics will also be your most vocal supporters when things, turn around. And at the end of the day, what do we want? We want a team we can be proud of. We want players on the field that excel, and we want the wins that make our city proud.
Well, you know what, David, you can follow David Katz at Katzmandu. I think it was Marty Conway this week said something. There's the first time anybody had said it, and he probably said it because he was linked to EBW in the 80s and helped build the Orioles. I mean, Marty helped get Camden Yards on the map, period. So every time you hear him on the show, but it was about these franchises being a civic trust. And, I've heard them say that, and I believed that from Bisciotti until I flew down to Palm Beach and he sat 15 feet away and refused to take questions from me. So, when I see civic trust, I don't, this Angelos fight, there's nothing in that lawsuit that indicates that they even realize there's any civic trust involved here, other than speaking about the Star Spangled Banner and, some bullshit that may or may not be true. Because the real civic trust is being here, being a part of the community, being front facing to the community, and having a long-term lease and having a long-term commitment and having a real strategy that smart people like me understand that we can take to the public and have them better understand. Because one of the issues with this World Cup thing, to bring the whole thing full circle, is it was all kind of done in the darkness. Most fans here didn't know much about what was going on. I tried to bring people up to speed because it was such a BFD. And then in the end, they try to distract from the truth. And that's I had the Baltimore Banner people on this week, Imtiaz Patel and Kimi Yoshino. She comes at it honest from the LA Times, and trying to, and I had the mayor on this week, right? And talking about holding him accountable, sitting next to me for an hour and talking about crime and safety and what he's doing. And you should go watch that too. But holding people accountable, that's what the media was. That was my job in 1984 at the News American, and that will be my job again once I've been thrown out of my seats in the upper deck and down into the press box, as I have been by Chad Steele. So I'll be doing that. I'll be sitting in the press box, being a press guy, So David, I hope to see you between now and then, right?
Chad's one of the good guys. Chad is one of the good guys. I've dealt with all these different teams. We're lucky to have Chad. We're lucky to have Steve. We're lucky to have a great example at M&T Bank. And then we look over to the Orioles, and I will tell you, despite everything we've been through with this Angelos family and the frustration, and it didn't need to be like this, they can still win our hearts back, and it's not that hard. The team is trending in the right direction. If they came back, if they spent time here, if they truly made a commitment to the city of Baltimore that didn't feel feigned, that felt legitimate. The more I hear someone say the team isn't leaving, the more I get scared. And in particular, you start parsing words. The Orioles aren't leaving. Well, you know what? Then I just start thinking they'll take the team, but they'll leave the brand behind, and they'll go rename it something else. And the history and the tradition can stay in Baltimore, because we learned that lesson with the Colts and how terrible that was, that we handled it properly with Modell and the Browns. And they don't have the same animosity in Cleveland, despite, yes, they lost their team. They got it back. They got their history.
So what you're saying, they want to give us the Oakland A's? Yeah, no, you know what I mean. Yeah,
I'm telling you, at some point, like, if they said, "Hey, we're going to leave the tradition and the colors and the rich legacy, and you can have Brooks and Jim Palmer and all these guys, but we're taking these players." The reality is, if they truly committed to the gem of a ballpark and this city that loves their baseball team, and this thing, let Mike Elias keep doing what he's doing, let us trend in the right direction, but do what we haven't been able to do, which is, when we grow talent, keep talent, pay for talent, keep talent, and spend the money. This team in 3 years can be one of the best, if not the best team in baseball. It has a lot of these elements, but you got to supplement it with real spend. And I saw it, look, obviously a bigger market in LA, but I watched what they did in LA, and they combined analytics and a really good farm system with the ability to spend money. And even in a city where there's 50 things to do on any night or any day, and any reason not to go to the ballpark, people still go to the ballpark, and people are still supporting that franchise. Even though it's a Laker town, they've done enough to make it feel a little bit like a Dodger town. And it would not take much to get that energy back into Camden Yards the way it was the last time we were at the playoffs.
Good
It was
leadership, just good
electric.
leadership, good experience, treat
It's
people
not
the right
over.
way.
Look, we all hope the team ends up in great hands. But if the Angelos said, and it's their right to say, we're not selling this franchise, we're going to continue to run it, and they want to do it, I agree with you. Show up, make the commitment to the city, make the commitment to all the things that matter in and around the stadium, put a great product on the field, make a great experience to bring your family down to the park, and they can win us back. People have short memories. They could win us back.
I agree with all that. David Katz, Katzmandu, you can find him out on the interwebs. He's down in Miami getting great sunlight right now, better sunlight than I'm getting in my Baltimore Positive studios. Always good to visit with you. I hope to see you in football season. You can find me in the press box. I'm out of my seats in section 513, row 1, seats 7 and 8 after 27 years. So I'm unhappy. So, and I'm not going to have any problem letting people know how unhappy I am. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking. Let's see. World Cup, Orioles, Ravens, Lamar, the future of the team, and all that good stuff.